Good evening, family. Ken Mills here with World Views. Now, tonight we have a very informative episode. We're going to be discussing all realms around education. Now, for many folks, we think of education, we think of your elementary, your secondary, and your higher learning. But there's also another facet that hasn't been talked about, which is being self taught, which we'll cover tonight. We have two illustrious guests that'll join us here shortly. So I'd like for you all just to stay tuned. Stay tuned, hang in there. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, but when we return, we'll have our first illustrious guest. You're now here with World Views with Ken Mills on Boss Up Houston Network.
Let's talk business. Let's talk fashion. Let's talk health, fitness, community, lifestyle, and finance with Boss Up Houston, Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. It's Boss Up Houston, where we look up, stay up, and boss up.
All right, we're back. Now, this gentleman to my left, I met him probably about 3 to 4 months ago. And when we had a conversation, I just admired everything that he was speaking of. This gentleman here is a well-known oil painter, as well as a political strategist in his own mind, in his own right as well. Introducing Mr. Moure. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Moure, I see that you have a different perspective about many things. So, I can also tell that you're well read. What are some of the books that you have in your repertoire that are your go-tos?
Well, I would say some of my go-tos, one being Emotional Intelligence by David Walton. That one specifically has actually helped me out exponentially when it comes to finding different avenues and ways to be a more well-rounded human being. I feel like in doing so, I was able to approach different things in certain ways to help other people become more well-rounded as well and see a different outlook than the usual. Other one would probably be They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima. That book specifically had to do with a lot of the things that I wasn't necessarily taught in my adolescence. Knowing that book, it taught me that there was a different, in a way, truth that wasn't necessarily revealed when I was younger. So that one's a very good book as well. Lastly, I would probably have to throw in Mastery by Robert Greene. Mastery speaks of the way an individual spending a certain amount of time enables them to be able to have something that they've known become like second nature to them. So that one more specifically is one now that I'm really delving into for sure.
Okay. So we circle back around the emotional intelligence.
Okay.
So the emotional intelligence is your ability to read individuals, correct?
Yes, in a sense, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically understanding if a person is more guarded, if a person is upset, if a person may be deceiving you as well.
Yeah, and it definitely has that element to it. I would also say it's
Now, one of my favorite is, and the other one may be building teams, or you're building your circle around, if that makes any sense.
that makes great sense.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Now, when you talk about we were here before Columbus, that touches on the indigenous perspective, right? The indigenous people that were here before Columbus, before 1492, correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
So, from my understanding, those people were the indigenous. We can dial them back to the Native American, and some people may believe that they're the Moors.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, sir. Definitely. Yes, sir. I would say so. You have me like, man. This is pretty cool, but yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right. So the Moorish presence would have to be through the navigation
Yeah.
to outer reaches of the world.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right. Because in order for Columbus to get here, someone else had to get here first.
Someone had to explore it first, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I also noticed in your all paintings that you touch on a different perspective as well. If you could give us a little bit of insight into, your artistry and what drives you with that.
So what drives me in my artwork, particularly now, is diversity and the element of having people come together in a way. It was the beauty of African descent, Black culture. A lot of my paintings or oil paintings have to do with giving a sense of a throwback to the Harlem Renaissance. That feeling came from understanding what's kind of going on in those areas of New York with the gentrification, and seeing that a lot of things are being erased in a way. So I wanted to tie what I'm doing now to give reverence to what was happening previously.
So when you speak of the Harlem Renaissance, it's also inclusive of the artistry of poetry, music, and also you can probably tap into the business aspect of it as well.
For sure.
So who was your favorite figure from that time?
Oh, I have many. A lot of, I would say, not to give like specific names because there's so many, but a lot of during that time, I would say more so like the genre that I was more so interested in was jazz. I feel like everything jazz played a big part in how individuals live their lives. It was sort of like the centerpiece. And doing so, I feel like a lot of people mastered a lot of their crafts and was able to show that. Yeah.
Okay. And I can definitely see that as well because music is always the sign of the times. And when you hear jazz has many influences on human well-being and life. If you look at the fashion from that time, like everybody was very coiffed, everybody was very crisp.
Yeah.
But the music was very invigorating. So
Very
I
true.
see where you're trying to go with that.
Yeah. So I'm playing it. I'm trying to put that in a lot of aspects of what I'm doing now, for sure.
Okay. So, were you taught this in any secondary school, higher learning, or anything?
It's very interesting. I want to say that the beginning of my desire to know stemmed from an internal sense of it not being taught. So I feel like it was definitely a personal desire. Well, I would say it was taught by my parents. It was instilled by my parents. But as far as not being able to see that in the relative schools that I was going to, it definitely shifted my longing to actually put that and have it being displayed through myself and what I'm doing now. Yeah.
All right. So, your parents planted the seed,
Yeah.
and it did not grow until you stepped outside of the structured education.
Very true. Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks to James and Kim Bledsoe, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to what you see currently in the environment, like I'd like to ask you, what's your stance on the current situation with George Floyd?
as far as the right now, there's trials going on. I would definitely say that there's a lot of there is a straight line that you could go, but I feel like what we've done as a society, we've gotten into this playful state of not addressing like the true problems, like the humankind, the human nature of things. As far as the trial goes, I believe a lot of it could be solved by just saying that yes, there was a wrong done. But I feel like a lot of it has to do with no one wanting to admit the fault that was done.
Right. And I say from a certain perspective, it comes about the history.
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand the history, you'll never understand the current.
Correct. Yeah.
I hear outcry from many different folks, and different folks outside of the African American race that say, hey, there needs to be some level of accountability, there needs to be some level of justice.
Yeah.
But if you look back beyond 400 to 500 years, there has not been any whatsoever. There's been abhorrent defense that has been going on throughout this trial. We've seen where Donald Williams, they were trying to bait him into saying that he said some derogatory things to the officer.
Right.
Like he just kept saying them and kept saying them and saying that he was angry. But instead he told him that he was professional.
That's correct. Yeah.
I just think right now what we're going through is people don't understand the history, and they don't understand by emotional intelligence and also by the barometer of the things that are going on right now that racist is being used now subconsciously. It's not overt. And we just need to understand that we need to hold everybody to the same standard.
Very true. Very true.
Right.
Yeah.
So, go back to the mastery portion. So, in your own personal life, I know that you're an oil painter, amongst many other things. Is that thought process around mastery being used in that fashion?
I believe so. One thing that I have an understanding of is that mastery can only be achieved when you dedicate a certain amount of time. We're talking 20,000 hours, dedicated hours to certain things. I will say I'm nowhere near as far as mastering something, but I think having the mindset of wanting to achieve a level of like Leonardo da Vinci or Einstein. I feel like those individuals were actually dedicated to something long enough and were in it long enough to where they were able to get to that level, for sure. I would say in the things that I do, with focus, I apply mastery, understanding that as long as I'm focused, I will be able to get to mastery, but I also am humble enough to understand that I still have a long way to go, for sure.
I definitely feel that because one of my many pursuits is comedy.
Okay.
And I often grapple with this. I often grapple with the point of mastery. A lot of people, they like to delve back into the Malcolm Gladwell thought process where you have to commit 10,000 hours to a certain subject in order to gain mastery. I don't believe that. What I believe is it has to be a level of feedback.
Okay.
So you have to receive candid and honest feedback. So what I do normally on social media and also with people who I truly trust their opinion, I'll ask them, I'll give them like certain snippets or certain ideas, and I say, hey, what do you think about this? So I may just ask just a generalized statement, hey, what do you guys think of Worldviews with Ken Mills? And I'll definitely listen and I'll read that feedback and then I'll ingest that, then I'll apply it along to that mastery.
Wow, okay.
Because with growth, you always have to seek out feedback.
Right.
And I think during this time, in this era, people don't seek feedback. Most people, they have self-assurance. They believe that they're at a certain point, but that may not be the case. That may be a case of false confidence.
I agree. Yeah. And quite frankly, I love your perspective of mastery. And again, this is why I'm saying I don't know everything, but I think the way you looked at it was so unique in a way that it may be a lot easier to achieve mastery now, given that there's so much ways to connect and understand more. Understanding that the brain's capacity is so vast that you can retain a lot of information in a short amount of time.
Right.
For sure.
Most definitely, because this is the microwave age. Everything is out for the taking.
Right.
If you go back to the beginning of civilization from a biblical standpoint, when Adam and Eve had their shroud removed and they were able to see everything in the garden for what it was, that's the actual era that we're in now, because nothing is hidden.
Nothing, yeah.
Unless you want it to be. But like my mother says, what's done in the dark will come to light.
For sure. For sure, yeah. The true words never been spoken, yeah.
So, from a political perspective, and I know that as an artist, you try to stick more on the creative. So right now, with the current climate, how do you feel that our country is going?
I feel like it's two parts. One being, I feel like we are becoming more diverse and more open, but I also feel like it's our nation in a way has become more so a recluse in a sense. I feel like we're being opposed in a way to where we can't necessarily speak our minds. This is why comedy is so essential nowadays. It's one of those spaces where you could actually say things that haven't been said in a very long time or that need to be said. But I definitely feel like as far as our nation and politics, I think there's a lot to be done, but I don't think politics is the only thing that can be done. I feel like if we change a lot of the outer elements beyond politics, politics in and of itself will then have no choice but to adjust to the way a society is being displayed.
Okay. So one thing that I did notice from your answer here is that comedy is a place where you can definitely have freedom of speech. Unfortunately, at this time, the world has begun to be a little bit more sensitive, and we do have a cancel culture. So some of the things that you could have said probably 10 to 15 years ago, you have to tread lightly now.
Very true, very true.
All right. So if my audience, if the people, if they want to commission your work, how could they get in contact with you?
Well, the best way, a lot of the time, I'm going strictly through Instagram right now, but I definitely want to broaden to a website and things of that nature. But Moure L. Bledsaw Art, MOURELBLEDSAW Art is my Instagram page. I'm definitely taking messages and constructive criticism as well, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Moure, it was a great honor to have you on the show.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the discussion.
Yes, sir.
All right, and we also will support you. We will be commissioning a piece of art to be made as well, and we'll reach out to you about that.
Wow, thank you.
No problem.
Yes, sir.
All right, so everyone just hang tight here. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, but when we return, we'll have our final illustrious guest. You're now here with World Views with Ken Mills on Boss Up Houston Network.
What are you doing here? Red Table Talk, the Estefans. Time to take the table to a whole new place. It's coming to Miami. 3 different women, 3 different generations. We're loud, we're proud. Let's go.
We're talking about relationships, love, sexuality.
Oh my gosh. We all know that you are fuerte. Yes, I'm a tough woman, but I'm very vulnerable.
Like muchas Latinas.
In order to move forward, you have to go to those places.
I like boys. I like girls. I like both.
Honesty will set you free.
We are putting all of that on the table.
Red Table Talk, the Estefans.
Be a part of the conversation. Only on Facebook Watch.
lady to my left, I mean, she's an avid community outreach. She's currently now running for Fort Bend Independent School District School Board. I have here, and we're going to introduce Judy Dae.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Judy Dae. I'm running for Fort Bend ISD School Board position 2.
Okay.
Yes, and it's an honor to be here tonight.
Thank you. So, position 2, which area in Fort Bend will you be covering?
Actually, Fort Bend is not a single member district, so we are all together.
Okay.
So yeah, every position is for the whole school district.
Okay, so for the whole school district, and that is stretching from Fresno all the way back to Sugar Land?
And actually, part of Houston is
Okay.
also Fort Bend ISD.
Okay,
Yeah.
so which schools, if you don't mind me asking, which schools within the Houston?
We have
city limit?
81 campus.
Okay.
Which school in Houston? Like there's a mission band that area,
Oh,
right at the border. So
Okay.
that's actually have Houston address, but it's Fort Bend ISD
Okay.
school district. Yeah.
Oh, Michigan, like Highway 6, Richmond, that type of area.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm very curious here. So, understand that before you began to run for the school board, that you were an information technologist.
Yes.
All right. So, you hail from New Jersey
Yes.
originally, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. So, what brings you to Houston?
My husband's job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And your interest with the school board, you began through volunteerism, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So, what led you to volunteerism?
So I know your program is not, this is, we can sit here and talk about this for a very long time, but I'll give you a short version of it.
Sure.
I was an Oracle database administrator. I worked in New York on Wall Street for a few years, and then short after our first child was born, my husband, the job, they sent him to Hong Kong. So we went to Hong Kong, and everything became very new to us. So over there, I start to become actually instructor to teach people expat like Chinese. So that's how I start actually. You can call it like education part of things. I start talking to the kids. I start teach them Chinese and adults. And then when my older one start school, I start to volunteer at school. That was when she was 4 years old. But if you're a volunteer in school, you will know. Once you start, it's hard to stop because you know you're making a difference on campus. It's very rewarding. And then we moved to Pearland after 3 years in Hong Kong. And I continue like volunteer at school in Pearland, which is Alvin district. When you grow, like you grow with your kids, you meet friends at school, the teachers, your parents, that became your community. That became my community actually. And then, but at the same time, I was always trying to go back to work, thinking about going back to work because I love data. I love what I did. And but then my husband's company sent us again to Paris, France. So again, we're in a very new environment, different school settings. It was an international school, so I start to volunteer there as well. And then after 4 years, 3 years in Paris, another year in New Jersey, but I never stopped, so I volunteer different campus with different environment settings. And then we came back to Sugar Land also because his job moved us back to Sugar Land. So that's really my journey. And once really I wanted to say there's someone told me one time, if you love your children, you need to love your neighbor's children.
Right.
and then you love the children in the community, because that's how the society works. I guess that's why I'm really happy being a volunteer at school.
So, if I understand correctly as well, that was an initiative that you put in place in the middle school, the Falcon Table.
Yes.
So, could you give us an idea of what transpired there?
Yes. So when I was volunteer in for Settlement Middle School, you know, for that year I in charge of the spirit store. So I very often I go there during lunchtime to sell the merchandise. I noticed there's a couple of boys. They keep walking, like, I never see them like sit down and eat their lunch. So I was like, seriously, what's going on? So I start talking to them. So finally, there's one boy. He told me, he said, I walk because I have nobody to sit with. I just wanna pretend I'm busy, like busy walking, so nobody will ask me or notice I have nobody to sit with. That really broke my heart, right? And also I found out there's kids eating their lunch in the bathroom. It's just heartbroken. So I thought about it, and then because when we were in Paris, because people came from different places, you get to know each other. I created a lunch program in Paris to help people to know each other. So I said, okay, maybe I can bring the same idea to school, so the kids can sit with someone else. The whole idea is when you go to a lunch table, I have a number, I have pair of numbers, like 2 3s, 2 4s. I put a 1 on the chair, and then when you come to my table, I give you a number. So you have a random number. You will sit there with somebody you have never met, but you will have somebody sit next to you. So I also have parents to come with board games to play with the kids, to carry on with conversation. The whole idea for that, I just want everybody know we care about them, like we care about all the kids, and they should feel loved. That's the whole idea behind it.
And I see that's very impactful because even in adult life, there needs to be some level of diversity and inclusion initiative that goes on
Yeah.
socially that helps everyone come together. So with your campaign right now for your candidacy, what are some of the initiatives that you're going to pursue once you do get elected?
Yeah. So on my push card on my platform, there's really two. I mean, I have 3 things on my push card, but really the top 2 are very important, right? One is being a volunteer on campus. I got to talk to the teachers, to parents, to students, to understand, to feel what they need. So as a board member, I wanted to continue with that. So I made a promise, I'm gonna do regular campus visit. I know it's difficult, we have 81 campus, but I do want to actually go there, meet with the teacher to hear first-handed what do they need to make their life easier, because the teachers, they work very, very hard. I wanted to be able to help them. And the second thing, I want to create what I call parent, student, or community advisory panel. The reason for that, I feel a lot when, in the community, a lot of time, the parents get angry because they don't have enough channel to get information. A lot of time, the school is sending the information, but we're all very busy. A lot of parents, they have a busy life. Sometimes if you don't follow like closely with the school board meetings, sometimes you don't catch the information that's actually important. And then all of a sudden you'll hear rezoning or you'll hear tax increase. those words will really alert people, and people became very anxious or unhappy. But in my opinion, I feel we should have constant like channel to hear the voice from the community, and then at the same time to provide information. That's why I think this panel will be the people who involved in school, like volunteer like myself and other retired teachers. They can really provide a lot of advice to the board. At the same time, the district probably will provide the necessary information. Does that make sense? So keep
Yes.
that channel open.
Right. Basically a conduit for the parents so they can understand exactly what's being said from a school board perspective
Yeah.
prior to being triggered.
Exactly. Like, exactly right.
Yes.
So I do feel the communication is really the key. I mean, we're all there for our kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So, since you've been a volunteer in Fort Bend, have there been any issues that you've seen that you'd like to correct immediately?
Yes, there is one issue policy. Actually, I gave a public speech on December 2019. At the board meeting. This is not a secret. It's public information out there. So recently, I should say recently, 2019, Fort Bend ISD, they had create a new policy, which the kids will be ranked or evaluated based on where they zoned, but not based on which school they go to. For example, if a child live in zoned to high school A, but Fort Bend ISD have, we have academies program, so the child can go to high school B for the high school. But right before he or she graduate, guess what? All the transcript, the ranking, especially top 10 or top 10 in Texas, that top 10 ranking will go back to high school A, even he or she has never been to that high school.
So, do you feel that it will displace?
Yeah, because I feel, for example, the kids will will be ranked from a school has never been to. So it's not fair for the student who attend school in high school B. Also, it's not fair for the students in high school A. All of a sudden, there's kids from other school come back to rank with them. I do think there probably more reason to it when they make this policy. But as a parent, from all the information I can get, I do not agree with this. So that's one thing I wanted to at least to look into immediately.
So, what would be the residual impact from that policy? Would there be a disparity in scholarships that will be provided? Or?
Yeah, it's, for example, because Texas has that top 10% auto admission to Texas colleges, right? So that will impact students.
Okay. Will it also impact funding? Because I know there are bonuses that may be given out because of tax tests or things of that nature.
Probably not, because if you look at the whole district, those students still in one of the school in the district.
Okay.
So yeah, it's more impact on the top 10%. But overall, I just feel it's not. For example, when a child to apply for college, right? He or she went to high school B, but she or his profile will from high school A, which the school she or he never attended. So that's, to me, it's kind of strange.
And disingenuous.
Yes, yes.
So, Judy, if any one of the constituents in the Fort Bend area wanted to vote for you, what would be the main reason why?
I believe, the reason I'm running is really because I've been volunteer for so many years. I just wanted to bring that piece of valuable aspect to the board. I believe I'm the person who actually will bring the true voice of the students, the teachers, the community to the board. That's the reason I think I really for the best interest of all the students. That's really the reason I think people should vote for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, Judy, if everybody wanted to take a look at your online presence, what site could they go to?
Oh, my website is judy44dynasty.com.
Okay. And the election cycle coming up?
Yeah, so the early vote is starting April 19th, and the election day is May 1st. So it's coming up really fast.
All right, guys, you heard from Judy herself. She's about the people, about the community, and most of all, about the children. So if you're in the Fort Bend area, please vote, and please vote for Judy Dae.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
No problem. Now, what we're going to do now, we're going to cut over to a quick commercial break, but when we return, we'll have our panel back for our final questions here. You're now here with Worldviews with Ken Mills on Boss Up Houston Network.
Stay up. Boss up. Where we look up, stay up. All right, and we're back. So we back. We have our illustrious guests here on panel. So first thing I'd like to ask, since we're talking about higher learning, we know during the pandemic right now we're not having too much in-school learning. So just wanted to get your take on how the online learning is affecting the children from a social behavior aspect.
So for me, my personal opinion is I feel kids will learn best on campus. I think school is important for a reason. That's why we have schools. So I think it's not academic, right? It's also there's emotional, social aspect for the kids on campus. So I really believe we should let the kids go back to school as soon as possible, but in a safe way, right? We need to make sure the campus is safe for the kids, for the teachers. But we need to put all the effort we can have to bring them back as soon as possible. that's how I don't. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that there, I think in person is definitely going to have bring a different element as far as having a well-rounded children. I do believe children outside of school are actually able to still communicate, but as far as education goes, there's multiple different types of learners. Some people don't necessarily learn as well by themselves than they do with peers or with individuals like-minded or even different. So going back to in-person it may help out those individuals who are not good with studying by themselves. I definitely think it would be a benefit of doing so, going back to in-person.
Okay. And Judy, I'd like to pose this question. You can answer after Moure. Since your boots on the ground, have you seen any change in social behavior?
Yeah, I do. I'm a data person.
Yes.
So I'm very logical. I do look at the numbers. So based on what I read, the depression rate for the kids increased a lot. Some people say 70%, some people even say 100%, and the suicide rates went up almost 100%. It's very alarming. Even people around me, I know the stories their kids is suffering from depression. Actually, they probably also suffering even before the COVID, but right now they are suffering more, So I do feel, and also for my own child, she stayed home for since March to last year, everything shut down. I feel at the beginning she was very happy, and I was happy too to have her at home. But then after a few months, couple of months, I really feel she's anxious to have some personal contact with her friends. She was so sad she couldn't see her friends. I think it's very hard. It's hard for the children. It's also hard for us, right? Because I think we're social animals, human social animals. We do need to get there to have this communication, in person kind of. I like to hug people, and it's hard for me not be able to hug my friends, and it's not to mention their loved ones in family. Yeah, so that's my intake.
Yeah, sure. I second that. I definitely think that everything she said was pretty spot on to what I was shared sentiment with. So yeah.
Okay. Because from what I can see, because I speak to children all the time, most of them in my family. I just want to give a quick shout out to my nephew, cousin Sammy Anderson. He made 9 today. Very special young man. When he was 14 days old, he had open heart surgery and he survived.
Oh, wow.
And he's a social animal. He likes to dance, he plays football, but most of all, he likes different games, like computer games. And I noticed that a lot of children are now leaning toward the games rather than the outside activity.
Yes.
And you could definitely see that the health could be impacted as well. And I think that's ironic because we're staying inside to protect our health, but we're harming our health by not going out and being active. One last thing here. So I did. I know we spoke a little bit earlier. We talked about some of your studies becoming a data scientist through IBM. So how important is it for self-education versus structured education? And I'll pose that to you, Judy, and we'll come back to Moure.
So for me, really, I always tell my kids or other kids. So a lot of time, in nowadays especially, a lot of parents really wanted their kids to find out what they wanted to be. Like even when they were in elementary school, they want to say, oh, what do you want to be later on? But to me, I really feel learning is a lifelong journey. So the important thing is you know what you want to learn. I mean, it's not necessarily became your career, but the passion, like wanted to learn new things, will keep your going, keep your life so much more interesting. So that's why the self-learning capability, it's priceless. You need to, that's actually one thing every child needs to have. That being said, I do believe from when they're early age, the structured learning in school will help them to build up the skill for later on if they need to self, self-learning, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Moure.
Yeah, so definitely, I think at a young age, I believe structure is imperative to have that element of knowing that there are parameters that may need to be there so that you could help with honing on certain specific things. But I feel like when you do get older and you're able to branch out and understand certain things, the proper ways to do things and what not to do, I definitely think that a more broad way of learning is inevitable by nature. So yeah.
So if I can add something on that, I do feel I wanted to tell all the parents and grandparents, the kids, every kid, they are very special. Every kid is special. All they need is love and encouragement, really. So even, maybe when they were young, they're not doing as well as you're hoping them to do, the level, they didn't reach the level your expectation. Give them time and give them the love they need, and they will really become someone special. That's what I truly believe. So I love my kids. So Jessica, Melinda, if you're there, I love you so much. I think all the parents love their kids. That's why sometimes they have very high expectations. But I just feel give your kids space, give them the opportunity, let them grow. I think that's really important. It will tie up to self-study. They will, success in their own way.
Now, I'd like to thank you both for coming and sharing your stories here on Worldviews with Ken Mills. Anytime that you need any of our assistance on this platform, please feel free to reach out. Also, we support you in your journey and your candidacy. Hopefully, and we're prayerful that will happen.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. And as to you, Moure, like we said, we will commission one of your works of art, and also we will display that here on the set once we do get that finished.
Thank you.
No problem.
I appreciate that as well.
I like the world back here, but I think we could jazz it up just a little bit more.
Yeah, that'd be interesting for sure.
So now here's my parting shot. So today we went through self-education. We also went through deep introspection with Brother Moure. And he was a good sport about it. He let us delve into what makes him tick and also with his artistry. Then we went to Judy. Judy gave you the backstory of why she started volunteering in the school system and why she's running now for candidacy and for being independent school district school board position 2. So please aid her in her journey, because you're not going to find too many people every day that's going to have that level of care, especially for children that may feel ostracized or may feel not included, to figure out ways to get them included, and it was very successful. So as I hear their stories, I want to tell a story of mine. There was an elder woman. Her name was Mrs. Rosie L. Coleman, and she owned Pinecrest Daycare. Now, my mother was a nurse for many years, 45 years, and she retired last, I believe, 2 years ago. and my father was a strong worker. At one point, he was a butcher at Burt's that closed yesterday. Burt's on the corner of Lowndes near Shotwell, Fifth Ward staple. But I say all that to say this. When they were working and putting their stamp on the world, they sent me to Mrs. Coleman. Mrs. Coleman started me out early with my religious teachings because I'm naturally a Baptist. Also with my reading and comprehension, with my mathematics, and with my history and with my knowledge of self. There came upon a time where she would sit me down, I was 4 years old, and I would read the Times magazine. And then it came to a point I needed to go to regular school. Once I went to regular school, I amazed them to a point where I took a Mensa test. This Mensa test placed me in the 4th grade when I was 5 years old. My mother chose to put me in 2nd grade, so, first grade, so I wouldn't be socially awkward. At that point, I became to be more competitive. So it was a drive inside of me. If there was a thing that I wanted to learn, I would find out on my own. I'll find a book and I'll read it. My mother started buying Encyclopedia Britannicas. I used to have a set in my room that were heavy. Even though I was a chubby kid, I was strong because I would pick up these books and I'd figure out what word I wanted to read for that day. That's why you see illustrious being said and a multitude of different other words in my vocabulary. I say all these things just to round it out and put it into perspective. Encourage your children to learn something that they're truly interested in. Not of current events, not of the world, because we all know Cardi B, we all know Lil Nas X, we all know all these different salacious things that are on television that are being programmed to the children. Ask them what their true interest is. Plant that seed, like Brother Moure's parents did, and watch it grow. There was a program that used to come on when I was a child. It was called Reading Rainbow. Take a look. It's in a book. Reading Rainbow. So if you haven't read a book, pick one up. If you don't have any books at home, buy you a bookcase. Because there's many things that you can learn in a book, but also never neglect the outside. And I think that's what we're missing right now during pandemic. We don't want to go outside because we're scared of our health. There's many lessons that can be learned outside. Because remember, a learned lesson is better than a bought one. So guys, what I'd like for you to do is open your minds, open your hearts, and stay safe out there. Next week, we'll have a fresh episode here for you. We'll delve into relationship talk. We'll have an illustrious panel of 4 individuals where we'll go encompass everything from being single to married. You're now tuned in with World Views here with Ken Mills. Have a blessed evening, and we'll see you next week.